Hello, I'm Peter Zonik from Balbit. I'm community manager for syslog, and a proper title would be that changing syslog into a better upstream. First of all, I will talk about what is syslog and a short history. Then about the problems it faced, and then I will also talk about how I tried to resolve these problems with the syslog team. And at the end, I will also talk a few words about our upstream projects. So, what is syslog it's one of the most popular syslog implementations, often called syslog, a Swiss Army knife of logging, as it has a lot more possibilities than the original syslog-D, a lot more inputs, outputs, much better filtering, and recently log processing was also added. One can extract important data from log messages using syslog-ng. The syslog-ng code base is highly portable, running on just about any Linux, BSD, and most commercial Unix variants. It's a software developed in Hungary, where I'm from, and developed for over 14 years as an open source project. So syslog-ng is an upstream for quite a lot of different projects. It's a part of most Linux distributions, and it's also available in BSDs in ports. It's the core component of enterprise log search and archive, which is a log management and analysis software. It's also part of many networking appliances from Cisco, F5, or many in many network storage appliances, and it's also upstream for a commercial version, which was added a few years ago. For many years, the syslog-ng community grown on its own. It was the only alternative to the good old syslog-D, but knew a lot more and was many more flexible. So it was documented over 50 books and all over the internet. And there were many users of syslog-ng, but recently many factors slowed down the adoption of syslog-ng. One of them is called rsyslog, as with the appearance of rsyslog, syslog-ng wasn't the only alternative anymore. Also, the introduction of the commercial version and the necessary contributory license agreement alienated quite a few Linux distributions, not the users, but as they receive, many of them use logging system from the distribution. This also, it wasn't really good for us. And syslog-ng was never actively pushed from within Balbit. from the developers. They just coded, answered emails on the mailing list, and published source code, and that was all the interactivity. This had quite bad consequences for us, as our syslog became the default in many Linux distributions, and also resulted in that many distributions stayed with ancient versions, syslog-ng versions, as there was nobody actively working on this program. 3 years ago, when I joined the Bulbit, originally I went there for a completely different job, but I ended up to change the way how syslog-ng works and be a lot more active with the community. So before going on what I did to change the syslog-ng world, I would like to ask a tricky question. What do you think? Which syslog-ng version is the most popular? Here are some hints on the screen. Syslog-ng 3.4 was released just three days ago. SUSE Linux Enterprise has version 2.0. Debian has 3.1. Fedora and OpenSUSE both have version 3.3. So what do you think? Which has the largest installed base? The first one was the right answer, and even older. It's version 1.6, as syslog-ng is running on all of the Amazon Kindle devices, so over 50 million installed base of syslog-ng. I guess no distribution can provide this number of installations, even where it's default. So back to more serious topics. When syslog-ng team figured out that distros are using ancient syslog-ng versions, they started to provide own binaries on the syslog-ng website, which didn't really work out as expected, as one can build and provide packages only for a limited number of distributions and architectures, and just take Debian or NetBSD, where there are over a dozen different platforms, which we obviously cannot support on our own. So one of the first things I did, that I started to look for active maintainers for syslog-ng packages in different distributions, and have the work of these packagers. This is beneficial for both sides. We know what is changed in syslog-ng. We know what are the dependencies, how they are changing, what are the new features, and so on. But distribution packagers are the one who know the packaging system, the init scripts, and the and the infrastructure of different distributions. So this way we could suddenly reach a lot more users, as a lot more as it became up-to-date versions were became integral part of different distributions. I also helped distributions to reinvent the wheel. I mean, many distros did quite similar patches to syslog-ng to help packaging and stuff. And I started to collect these patches floating around and integrate them into our upstream tree. I also started to follow distribution backtrackers, as the syslog-ng project has its own Bugzilla, but not everybody can find it. Most people file bugs at distribution backtrackers, and this way we could collect a lot more feedback and fix problems a lot quicker. Next, I would like to talk about how community influences the development of syslog-ng. The first round is licensing and distribution policy. As I mentioned, the contributory license agreement was considered evil by a couple of distributions. And it was quite well documented in different wiki pages. Just nobody from the syslog-ng team read it. So one of my first input towards the team was that this problem should somehow be resolved, even if it might be too late and distros chose rsyslog or remain with syslog-d, but at least we don't lose other developers and users, and might gain even more if this obstacle is removed. So the first version after I joined the team was 3.2, in which syslog-ng became modular, which could quickly resolve this problem, as the core of the software became LGPL. The rest of the modules became GPL, which immediately made the CLA redundant. And if anybody looks at our Git tree, the number of outside contribution immediately jumped. We run into another problem. The manual pages were not free enough. I'm not a license guru, but it was something that was a problem for a very small distribution where all of the code and documentation had to be under a GPL compatible license. We complied and did even more. We also made the XML sources for the manual pages available. Another problem is we run with IVKeys with the Fedora project. IVKeys, we use IVKeys for threading and I/O in syslog ng 3.3, and as we found IVKeys a very promising project, but there were many little details not yet worked out completely. So we forked the code base and extended to our needs. We thought that we can wait with it and slowly upstream our changes, but as it turned out, while OpenSUSE, Debian, FreeBSD, and so on did not care about bundling forked library, Fedora was strict with us and did not allow to upgrade syslog ng to version 3.3. So it became suddenly a huge problem for us, as about 2/3 of our users are coming from Fedora, Red Hat, CentOS, and they couldn't use this way our latest version from distribution sources. So we quickly, well, not so quickly, but it took a few months, but we worked closely with the IVKeys developer to upstream all of our patches, and 3.3 is now part of Fedora. Community can also influence the development of a project with code contributions. Syslog ng tried to keep close relation with distributions in the past 3 years, and once systemd became important, we start the OpenSUSE guys approached us that they need support in syslog ng for systemd, and we did the initial systemd support with OpenSUSE. Of course, systemd was changing quickly, and at least at the beginning, and we extended and finished our systemd support with Arch Linux developers. There were many small features coming from the community. PatternDB is the parser I mentioned, which can extract information from log messages, and it has many different little parsers for IP addresses, email addresses, strings, integers, and so on. And many of these were added by the community. Or our first larger external code contribution was a complete destination driver for AMQP. We learned about it just by accident. Somebody was asking if we could find a bug in why syslog ng doesn't work in a sudden configuration, and we found that, oops, there is an AMQP destination in the configuration file. So we asked if it could be upstreamed, and this is how it became our first external, large external contribution. I mentioned that I'm working in close connection with many different distributions and Linux distributions and BSDs. But of course, there are a lot more Linux distributions than the major ones. And subscribing to backtracking and email list and so on is practically impossible. One of the tools which can help to resolve this problem is a tool from Google, but I'm sure that other search engines have similars. I guess the Big Brother is not the best expression for this, but practically this helps us quite a lot, as anytime syslog-ng turns up on a new web page, I get a message about it, and this helps to follow backtrackers, email list, forums, and so on, and collect information, and also help where I can. There are, of course, situations where the problem is very specific to software, like I cannot really answer questions related to syslog-ng integrated into F5 appliances, but often I just register to the given forum where something is found and try to help. And last but not least, here is where Google Earth is Big Brother, that I can also see what others are saying about syslog-ng and how they compare syslog-ng to competing solutions. At the end, I would like to talk about our upstreams. I already mentioned iWikis. Velbit contributed quite a lot of code upstream, and the iWikis project is our best upstream. And since version 3.3.6, syslog-ng can work with upstream iWikis. libdbi is the bad example for a bad upstream, which we use to access databases. The last release of libdbi was about 5 years ago. There are quite a lot of fixes in CVS, but as there was no release, distributions carry the crappy old versions. For example, syslog-ng needs patches from CVS to access I don't know, one of the SQL drivers. And for the ugly, I should mention MongoDB. We were looking for a C library which could be used by syslog-ng, but there was just nothing what we could use. So we developed our own library for MongoDB, and it was quickly picked up my other projects, including rsyslog. At the end, I would like to ask if you have any questions. Sorry? Yes, as far as I know, it was not me who contacted them. That was a C++ implementation, but that didn't really fit our need, and mm, as far as I know, that it was a colleague of me who tried to who emailed with them, and we didn't really receive much support when asking for help, and it was easier to write something new. As far as I know, but there is now a new C-based solution, so we will look at it later on. Mm. Any other questions?
Made those changes.
Sorry?
Did you see this a difference in how syslog NG is being received by users and distributions since you made those changes?
Yes. The most important one I already mentioned. The number of outside contribution increased sharply. So for earlier versions, we only had very few patches from outside, and once the CLA was removed, just in a few months, there was a sharp increase in outside patches, and in a year we got a real huge destination driver for syslog NG from the outside. We never had this kind of contribution before, so it was a quite important and visible change. And the other one is I was just sitting at Leonard's presentation about systemd, and previously there was not really much outside cooperation, just coding in the syslog team, syslog NG team, and now we try to work closely with other projects, and Leonard emphasized that while other syslog implementations don't really care about journal, we will have a developer in the upcoming Fedora Developers Conference in 2 weeks, and helping to code jointly on syslog NG and the journal. Sorry? Yes. Well, thank you for attention.